Hi, Prachi. How's it going?
Hi. It's going well, thank you. There you are.
I'm so glad we are able to make this work.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. Me too. How has your
Yeah.
day been so far?
It's been good. It's been good. Yeah. Yeah. I was excited about nervous and excited.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so glad to have you here. Let's see, we are 5:59. We can wait for a few more minutes so that
Sure.
more
Sure.
people can
Sure.
trickle in.
And I can have my chai because I got my chai ready. So chai and
Yes,
chat, right? So
me
we have to
too.
have.
Me too. All
Yeah.
yeah.
So is Tane going to be joining us as well?
No, so Tanay is going to be on the back end today. He's going to help us out with moderating, looking at the questions coming in,
Yeah.
and just sending them through to me.
Okay.
But we figured that this was the best workaround for
Yeah.
any technical issues that we were having the other
Yeah,
time.
no,
So,
thank you so much for figuring that out. I know it's like it can be challenging, right? I mean, you think technology would work, but oftentimes it's like, especially live, it always messes
mhm.
up. Something always goes wrong. Yeah,
Absolutely. And it always goes wrong at the last moment. So it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
you have to figure things out at the very last
yeah,
moment. But I'm so
yeah,
glad that we could make it work. So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, we'll just. Tanay says hi, by the way, on the side. He's like, he's like, tell him I say hi. So
And
he's
tell him I said
watching
hi
us
as
right
well.
now.
And tell him I said
He's
hi as
he's
well.
watching. Yeah. Um, awesome. People are trickling in. Let's just wait a couple of more minutes and
Sure,
then we'll
sure.
start. What are you most excited about this evening?
Uh, I don't know. I mean, one of the things I want to plug in is my film, the feature film that's playing at the Brave Maker Film Festival in Redwood City,
Hmm.
called Not Tonight, and that's what I'm excited to plug in. And then also the series Marriage Material, and it's
Hmm.
such a small world because they're making a movie called Boundaries, a feature film in the Bay, right?
Hmm.
It's about a
Yeah.
women's cricket team, and so
Hmm.
so happens that a lot of those actors they work with me on my series when we shot it last January, and soon
Hmm.
after that they joined the Boundaries team. So they were filming. So I keep getting updates from them. Hey, we're working on the feature right now. So I'm like, that will be exciting.
That's
Yeah,
awesome. That's just
yeah,
so good to hear. Ah,
yeah,
that's great. I'm pretty sure everyone who's gonna join us would be so excited to hear about all of these things. It's such
yeah.
an exciting thing to hear this from filmmakers, and just this career path from our demographic and our community,
Mhm.
that it would be so just fascinating to hear how you all go about it. How did you actually get into it? Just what's the scene like? I think is just super interesting for anyone to hear.
Hope it'll be interesting and useful for other people. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's see, it's 6:01. Um, we have a few people in already, so how about
Okay.
we just start? And I think
Sure.
I can just,
Sure.
we can say hi to people as they join in. They can
Yeah.
start asking questions. So yeah,
Okay.
hello everyone. Thank you so much
Hi.
for joining this evening. I'm Prachi, the audience engagement editor at India Currents, and you are watching India Currents Chai and Chat, where we bring interesting people to talk about interesting things, and so that you can ask your burning questions to them. So today we are joined by Amir Jaffer. Amir is an award-winning producer and director with 2 decades of experience. He's worked on documentaries, short films, feature films, music videos, you name it. And many of them have been published on Amazon, PBS, and MTV. Originally hailing from Pakistan, he is a prominent figure among the Bay Area South Asian filmmakers and is the founder of SF Queer Film Festival, through which he platforms queer storytellers like himself. Thank you so much, Amir, for joining us tonight. Thank you so much for being here. We're so glad to talk to you.
Thank you for having me here. It's so much fun. And by the way, I have my chai here. Okay. So if anybody's
Yeah,
joining us, please get your chai. Okay. Because we
yeah,
cannot have a chat
absolutely.
without chai.
Yeah, that's the way. That's the only way. So before we start with the questions, I'm just gonna give a little bit of a housekeeping rules. Please
Sure.
introduce yourself in the comment sections. We love seeing you where you're joining from. Please put your questions in the chat, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. There could be slight delays in us getting to the questions, so please be patient. Please do keep your comments respectful and on topic. We want this to be a positive space for everyone. And also, don't forget to hit that heart button if you enjoy the conversation. Feel free to share this live with your friends and whoever might be interested in talking to Amir. We will be going on for about 30 to 40-ish minutes, so settle in. All right, let's begin. So, Amir, let's just start from the beginning. How did you get into this non-traditional career path? How did you find your calling?
Well, I'm Gen X, right? So I have a story that a lot of folks can relate to. I grew up in Karachi, and of course, when I was growing up in the 80s, the film industry was non-existent because of the martial of Zia, the General Zia was there. So, and luckily we had VCRs coming, right? So we would rent all the Indian films, and my mom was a big classic Indian film watcher. So anything, any
Mhm,
black and white Indian film, with Meena Kumari, and then you have Dilip Kumar, and then
mhm,
Raj Kapoor, and Madhu Bala. She was a big fan of that. So I grew up
mhm,
watching that, and then we had the drama industry in Karachi, in Pakistan, right? We had only one state-controlled TV. Like you have Doordarshan in India, there was one PTV in
mhm,
Karachi. So that was my only source of inspiration. Either that or Indian films that we used to watch on VCRs. Then
mhm,
what happened was I was one of those weird kids. In India, you had this film movement, which was similar to the new wave cinema that was happening in Italy and France. India would call it art cinema, art film.
mhm,
And I mean, it was boring for most kids, but I used to love them. I used to watch those films with Arat and, what's her name? Sunita Patel was my favorite actress,
mhm,
Nasiruddin Shah. And so those are the films that really resonated with me because it was about the common man, the common person, and what they were
mhm,
dealing with everyday life. So of course, I wanted to get into filmmaking, but my daddy was like, no, ye artist banega aur kya paise kahan se kamaoge? That's a typical South
of
Asian
course,
thing.
of
Ke, how
course,
will
of
you make a
course.
living? So, but then so I reminded him last time I visited him in Karachi. I said, "You're to be blamed for that because one of his business trips he went to Japan, and those days they had these home movie cameras with a VCR that came out, right?
Mhm,
So if you ask your mom, I'm you too young to remember that everybody had those cameras with separate VCRs recording shadi movies, wedding films, and birthday
mhm,
films. So I got a hold of that. And in the beginning, my dad was like, "You are too young." I was 13 years old. I couldn't read the manual, but I figured out how to use the camera. And the next thing, there was
mhm,
another friend of mine in the neighborhood. His name was Salim. And he was another weird kid. He was a very bookish kid, reading all these novels. And so I said, "Salim, tum kuch script likho, write a script, and then let's make something." So then we gathered all the neighborhood kids, my friends, during a summer vacation. So the rule
mhm,
was, soon as our fathers would leave, go to work, and around like 9:30, and then we would get the camera out. All the kids would assemble at my house, and we start making dramas. And um, I recently got a hold of those VHS tapes. I'm in the process of converting them, so I have proved that I really did that when I was a 13-year-old weird kid.
That would
So
be just so fascinating to look at. I cannot wait for you to put that together and bring that forward because I feel like this is also reminding me of this book I was reading, Earl. I'm forgetting the entire name, but the Earl and the Dying Girl, and that's how the guy sort of starts, like starts with a VCR camera that he founds from his like somewhere, and he starts making this movies with his friends and just like being a kid but also starting his whole career in cinema. So
yeah,
I think it would be so amazing to see how you did that
yeah.
as a child.
I plan on making a documentary about my life maybe in the next 4 or 5 years. So then I will
Hmm.
release some of those clips in there to show like what I was doing early on, and then
Hmm.
fast forward. I came to the United States to complete my education, and then
Hmm.
I was at San Jose State, and then I ended up moving to San Francisco
Hmm.
after work, after finishing my education. I was working at Bank of America at that time, and one night I was coming back from the bank, and in one of the side alleys in the Mission District, there was a movie being made, and it turned out it was Lisa Swenson, a City College professor. She was making a movie called The Mission Movie about the gentrification of the Mission District in San Francisco, and I was really fascinated. And she had all her students there helping out with the production. So like, wow, this is like the old spark that had died from my childhood
Mm-hmm.
because of my father saying, "Nahi, you cannot make a living through this, and kya artist banoge." Um, it just reignited when I
Mm-hmm.
watched them making the film in San Francisco, and then I reached out to folks and Lisa Swenson. I picked her brain like, how do I get started, and then she gave me some advice, and then I spoke with other filmmakers over there, and then I made my first feature film called Between Places in 2005. So then
Mm-hmm.
it's been like one thing after another, learning um, and a lot of trial and error. And when I started 20 years ago, that was the same year YouTube was born. So
Mm-hmm.
2020, 2005, if you remember, YouTube was a brand new streaming platform.
Yeah.
And at that time, the challenge I had as a new filmmaker was the industry was going through a lot of changes because
Mm-hmm.
we were going from standard definition to high definition. And then we were going from, streaming was kind of disrupting the distribution because prior to YouTube coming about, the distribution was very limited. You would go to a film festival and you would hope and pray a distributor would like your film, and then you got to deal with them. But then
Mm-hmm.
YouTube came out in 2005, and I remember a lot of the predictions was that this is the future of distribution. And but I remember Hollywood insiders, the pundits, they were all were laughing. Analysts, oh, it's going to take a while, 10 to 15 years. But guess what? 2008, Amazon started streaming some of their catalog. Netflix started streaming some of their catalog. So streaming like really came and disrupted the whole system.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me as a new filmmaker at that time, I had to learn a lot of things, grasp a lot of things at that time. But then it was all worth it in the end. I would say now,
Mm-hmm.
now looking back, it was an interesting journey.
Yeah, I am interested for you to elaborate a little bit more on that first contact that you made, that courage that it must have taken for you to approach that person and ask
Mhm.
how they are doing it and how you can get into this field, and just the start of your journey the second time.
Yeah. Well, so Lisa Sorensen, unfortunately, she passed away. She had breast cancer, and
Mm-hmm.
she died in 2016. But she was really instrumental, I would say, in the beginning because she connected me with her writers, the person who wrote
Mm-hmm.
her film, and that writer connected me with a lot of folks who were in the mission movie that she was making, and that was a big boost for me because I was a newbie, I was brand new, and um, uh,
Mm-hmm.
you know, didn't have much any experience at all at that time. So they were all like
Mm-hmm.
very supportive, and that really encouraged me because I still remember the first screening we had, the work in progress screening of Between Places. I was so nervous, and then now I look back, it was horrible. It was horrible, but it was my first film. But everybody was so nice and said, yeah, it's a good first start. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
next time, before you show a film, get feedback. Since then,
Mm-hmm.
what I do is everything I make, whether it's a documentary, it's a music video, it's a feature or even a series, I do a private screening. I get people from the industry
Mm-hmm.
and have a private event and ask for feedback, and that really helps me, fine tune the film before I release it. So that was really
Yeah.
instrumental. I remember Lisa, and that's why I keep bringing her up. Every time I give an interview, I give her props
Mm-hmm.
for that because she was really instrumental.
Yeah, I think that's a super helpful advice of just getting feedback and bringing people in together before you're releasing the whole thing.
Yeah.
What's your process like then? You have worked across a lot of different roles in a lot of different formats and content, from shorts to features to documentaries to music videos, like you just mentioned. Is there any specific element that you look for in each of the project before accepting it? And what's your process like throughout the whole thing?
Yeah. So since I didn't go to film school, I had to I go back to my passion. Like, why would I tell a story?
Mm,
It doesn't matter if I'm doing a documentary, or am I doing a narrative or a web series. I if I'm doing something that's, say, a script comes my way, I need to
hmm
find myself in there as a person. So if I cannot relate to that subject matter or to that any of the characters in the film, then I say no to that. And even any
mm,
project that I do personally, I'm giving away the secret here. So now you watch my films and you'll be like, "What? Where's Amir in this?" So you see
hmm
that anything that I do now, or
hmm
for the last decade, I would say I always try to find myself in those characters,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or the subject matter has to resonate with me somehow.
Mm-hmm.
I did a documentary 3 years ago for about Anjali Rimi. She's a trans Indian woman, and
Yeah.
that premiered at Frameline in the Castro Theater.
Mm-hmm.
And that was so hard for me to make. I mean, we started filming 2022, and the goal was that we'll be done in 6 to 8 months, but it took me longer because of our culture. A lot of things triggered in me, uh, I just had to step away from the project for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
similarly, like like for example, right now I have a feature coming out. It had its premiere in Chicago and DC South Asian
Mm-hmm.
Film Festivals last year. In a couple of weeks, if I'm not mistaken, no, 3 weeks, July 11th, is going to be
Mm-hmm.
premiering at the Brave Maker Film Festival in Redwood City. And the feature is called Not Tonight. Puneet
Mm-hmm.
wrote it, and Puneet plays the lead, and Alison Ewing, she's playing his wife, and then Tyler McKenna is playing his friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's an interesting subject matter. It's inspired by Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. But
Mm-hmm.
I had to find myself in those characters. And I had to
Mm-hmm.
go someplace dark, to see how I can work with the subject matter and even the actors. Because unfortunately, I grew up in a very dysfunctional family. I had an
Mm-hmm.
alcoholic father who was abusive. So then, I had to find, okay, my experiences and how I can relate to the subject matter, and
Mm-hmm.
then and direct the actors using that experience.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, what I find interesting in my filmmaking process is that I think it's therapy for me. That's why I do
Mm-hmm.
filmmaking, because I mean, instead of going to a therapist and giving them thousands of dollars, um, this is what I do. I say, let's put that money in making a film, and then
Mm-hmm.
I'm dealing with my childhood traumas. I'm dealing with whatever issues that were not resolved,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a cultural thing. If you're from South
Mm-hmm.
Asia, a lot of the times, you have to put yourself together, and then
Mm-hmm.
put away whatever you're dealing with, or brush them under the carpet, as I say.
Yeah.
So filmmaking is therapy for me. That's why I think I do this. I'm continuing doing this, even though some people say you're crazy. It's so much
Yeah.
work, and how do you keep? I say, well, I don't know what else I'll do with myself if I don't do films.
Wow, that's so powerful. I think is that's sort of like a also a through line with storytellers, right? It's like trying to find ourselves or trying to make sense of ourselves and the world with the
Yeah.
stories that storytellers, right? That's just so profound. Um, I think I would like to dig a little deeper on what you were talking about a little earlier in terms of being an immigrant filmmaker, openly queer, which is still a point of stigma in the South Asian cultures. How did you overcome, if you have, or how are you still overcoming these barriers? And what advice would you have for other budding storytellers, filmmakers?
So you're talking about queer filmmakers or filmmakers in
Mm-hmm.
general?
I would talk about the barriers in terms of being immigrant, being queer, I think, or any kind of minority
Yeah.
background that you might be coming from, and things that might be stigmatized from the communities you're coming from. And how can somebody cope with those? How can somebody overcome those?
Well, my advice would be that if you are passionate about something, then you should go ahead and do it. And one of the things that we immigrants have that unfortunately I don't see in a lot of folks who are born and raised here, because we come from to a different country. We uproot ourselves and come and plant ourselves here and try to make a home here. So for
Mm-hmm.
us, we have this can-do attitude. So
Mm-hmm.
whatever limitations are put in front of us, we say, okay, we can overcome those.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, a lot of folks who are born and raised here, they don't see that. And sometimes I tell them, hey, you can maybe, basically a problem solved for them. You know how you
Mm-hmm.
can the people who are born and raised here. So that's one of the things I think we immigrants have. We have a can-do attitude. Secondly,
Mm-hmm.
for filmmakers who are passionate about it, learn the basics of filmmaking. Because if you know the basics of it, then doesn't matter if you have 500,000, or you have 50,000, or you have 500 rupees. I mean, $500. You can
Mm-hmm.
still tell your story. So don't let that be a restriction or limitation for you. The
Mm-hmm.
other thing is, don't just make any film. Uh, Tell a story that you're passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens, everybody's trying to be a filmmaker nowadays, and they try to compete with what's on Netflix and Amazon. So what happens is they're going after subject matters that are shallow, that
Mm-hmm.
are just for the purpose of entertaining. I think what we immigrants bring to the table as filmmakers is that we are bringing you stories that are coming from our heart,
Mm-hmm.
and coming from a place that a lot of mainstream or commercial filmmakers don't have, because for them it's okay, they have to make a film, they have to make a living through that.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things of being an independent filmmaker, is that we are not limited by commercial success.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays, there are platforms that, especially I will give kudos to Amazon. I know people hate Amazon because it's a big corporation, but
Mm-hmm.
their business model was very good, because they kept a backdoor open to indie filmmakers with unique stories. And they would let you release your films on there and get public
Mm-hmm.
feedback to see where you're at. But that's one of the things I would say to any filmmaker: be authentic, be real. Those
Mm-hmm.
are the stories that will click with the audience, even with the mainstream white audience. They love those stories.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I also found in my journey is that, unfortunately, because of the how I grew up and my family background, it was a dysfunctional family. So I relate to a lot of the mainstream Americans through my dysfunction, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So that was another connecting point for me as a storyteller with a lot of the American mainstream, filmmakers, or people who watch mainstream films. The other thing I would advise, or I would suggest to the filmmakers who are trying, you know don't get bogged down by technicalities. What happens a lot of times, people are like, oh, I'm going to shoot it on a RE Alexa camera or a red camera, and what
Mm-hmm.
happens is they break their bank and they go bankrupt that way. I'm like, don't run up your debts and your credit card. Nowadays you can shoot something on an iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
An iPhone has the capability, and get started small. Don't think like right off the bat you have to have you know a big crew, and you have to have red cameras and all that. You work your way towards that. And we've seen
Mm-hmm.
some of the big names in the industry, like Steven Soderbergh. He made he made a movie on iPhone 4 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
other filmmakers who've been experimenting with that. So I feel like new filmmakers, especially in our community, they get too much into the you know the the visuals of it. Oh, I'm going to have a behind the scenes photo. I'm sitting behind a monitor. Oh, we have show a big DOP with huge lights. Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
those are like superficial things. At the end of the day, when the audience watches your film, they don't care what camera you shot it on. They don't care what editing software you used. They don't care what your
Right.
budget of the film. If you can draw the audience in your story,
Right.
whether shot on an iPhone or shot on an RE Alexa, you've done your job. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I do remember, and do want to acknowledge and mention my great grandmother. We used to call her
Mm-hmm.
Amma. She was a this uneducated woman from a small village called Thana Bhavan in India. It's near
Mm-hmm.
Delhi. She was not educated, but I still remember as a child, we didn't have in the 80s, 70s, or 80s iPads or iPhones. She used to tell her stories.
Mm-hmm.
And verbally, she used to literally paint a picture with words that I, as a child, it used to open up my imagination. And
Mm-hmm.
and so sometimes I when I get too bogged down by technology and become too technical, then I say no, I have to be like Amma, because look how she was telling her story. So I have to be a storyteller, and all these things, cameras and editing softwares and all that. These are just tools for me to tell the story. But
Mm-hmm.
your story does not become great by just having RE Alexa or Red camera. Your story has to be strong, and of course, then you add layers to it. You bring in actors that
Mm-hmm.
believe in you, and they understand the project. They
Mm-hmm.
understand the what's so you have to open yourself up as a filmmaker
Mm-hmm.
to the actors as well, because if you're not going to be vulnerable with the actors, the actors will be like they'll also want to open up. So I feel like
Right.
oftentimes I have this chat with the actors, either one-on-one or in a group, before we start the production. Where am I coming from? What is my goal with this film? And
Mm-hmm.
I show open up myself,
Mm-hmm.
and that way actors also feel comfortable around me.
Yeah, I think that's super helpful. I think the point that is that no matter where you are, start small, that should be fine, but you at least start with a heartful and a
Yeah.
meaningful story that you are
Yeah.
supposed to be telling instead of being bogged down by the
Yeah. Yeah.
technicality and
Yeah.
the equipment and whatnot.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. I love that absolutely. Just taking a time check, we're at 6:20, so we are sort of midway through. Just for our audience, if you have joined late, we're talking to Amir, who is an award-winning producer and director, worked on multiple documentaries, short films, feature films, published on Amazon, PBS, and MTV. Feel free to put your questions in the chat and tag a friend who should be watching this. I'm just going to take a look at the chat, and I think there's a question from Anjana, who is asking if you are now able to be a full-time filmmaker.
Yes. So thanks for the question and for watching and tuning in right now. Is it Angela or Angela?
Anjana, Anjana.
Anjana. Okay, Anjana. Thank you so much for that question, and thank you for joining us. So the thing is, early on when I got into this field, of course, I made my first film, and then I made my second film, and I got my first documentary underway. I had some funding, but then the question was, how do I make it sustainable?
Mm,
And I hit a roadblock at that time. So then I sought advice from some of my mentors at that time, and they said, you learn a technical skill because everybody's a director, everybody's a producer, but how if you have a technical skill you can offer to other directors and filmmakers and make a living through that. So I learned editing, I learned about cameras, about lenses. So I learned film, being a camera person as well. And then I started saying, put myself out there. At that time, there used to be this organization in San Francisco called the Film Arts Foundation, which doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. And they were a big
mhm,
resource for filmmakers. There were bulletin boards you can post yourself like, hey, I'm here to offer my services. This is before
mhm,
Craigslist. So
mhm,
so then, and it was geared towards indie filmmakers specifically. So if a filmmaker who needs a camera person with their own equipment, they would hire me,
mhm,
or if somebody's needing an editor, they would hire me. And the thing with editing, I would say to anybody watching, you don't learn editing overnight. It's a craft. So the best way to learn that is shoot something. Maybe shoot your somebody's birthday party and make a story out of that. So you hone your skills that way. And
mhm,
because editing, I learned, like, I wish somebody was there to tell me this, what I'm sharing right now. When I started, that
mhm.
nothing comes easy, nothing comes overnight. You have to hone your craft and learn. You have to learn by trial and error. So I hope I answered Anjana's question here.
Yeah, yeah. I think you just mentioned one of the other film arts festival that you started, but I would love to also hear about the SF Queer Film Festival that you started. What was that experience of establishing it? How did you come upon that idea, and how did it go?
So what happened was, if you are aware, San Francisco has another oldest and longest running LGBTQ film festival called Frameline, and they've been
Mm-hmm.
around since 1977. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and the thing is, like, in their trajectory, in their evolution, they become big and they're very commercial right now. They do
Mm-hmm.
have some program for local filmmakers or indie filmmakers or low budget filmmakers, but the percentage of that has shrunk. And what
Mm-hmm.
was happening simultaneously as they were growing and becoming big, the last decade or so, the number of LGBTQ filmmakers or filmmakers in general has, increased. It's gone up.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thing is, more filmmakers are there, more storytellers are there, but they don't have enough film festivals to tell their stories. So what was happening? A
Mm-hmm.
lot of good films were being rejected, and I was one of those filmmakers who had experienced some of that rejection from Frameline. So then I would go to film mixers in the Bay Area, and everybody used to complain, "Wish there was another LGBTQ festival. Wish there was another festival." So then I said, hey, again, the immigrant in me, being an immigrant, hey, so let's make it happen. Why don't we start another festival? And then
Mm-hmm.
people in the beginning used to look at me like I've lost my mind, like, really? How will it happen? How will we get funding? But then again, being immigrants, we figure a way out. Like how we say in Hindi, jugaad, right? Jugaad karte hain hum log,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. So
absolutely.
that's what we did. And in 2021, right as we were coming out of COVID, we followed the science and we said, okay, let's start a first festival
Mm-hmm.
on a limited scale, and let's see if people show up. And I cannot tell you, Prachi, we were overwhelmed. We had
Mm-hmm.
close to 150 films submitted by filmmakers from around the world, including India,
Wow, that's
and
amazing.
Iran, and Israel, and Brazil, and Mexico. We were thinking just to be attracting local filmmakers, but we got more
Mm-hmm.
international filmmakers interested. And then when the festival took place, we had 16 programs, features and short films and all that. And San Franciscans came out, and we were so taken aback. We followed the science. We did the whole 6 feet thing, and we didn't sell all the seats. Um, so that was really encouraging. So now we are in our fifth year. We'll have a fifth SF Queer Film Festival starting August 22nd in the Roxy, the
Mm-hmm.
historic Roxy Theater in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we have this amazing program with international some filmmakers and local filmmakers. So that's how we got started, because we felt that there was a need for another LGBTQ festival. And
Mm-hmm.
the films we have in our festival, you won't see it at Frameline or any other festival in the San Francisco Bay Area. But those are unique to
Mm-hmm.
our festival. And we make it a point, because what's the use of, if you're going to have same films that program at Frameline or other festivals, why would you want to rescreen them, right?
Right.
And so I also want to make a special announcement on your show here right now for folks
Please
who are
do.
watching it. So the other thing I've been hearing a lot from folks in San Francisco Bay Area, that there's not, uh, or how should I put it? Uh, there's a need for another South Asian film festival in San Francisco Bay Area. People have tried over the years. Before COVID, somebody tried in Fremont, and there was
Mm-hmm.
another individual who tried it in San Jose, but it didn't work out. They only had it for 1 year or 2 years, and then it fizzled out. We have an oldest festival here, Third Eye, in San
Mm-hmm.
Francisco, but people have been expressing concern and dismay. The same I used to hear about the Frameline, the
Right.
LGBTQ film festival. That, oh, it's hard to get in, and then
Mm-hmm.
also there's so many filmmakers whose films get rejected because hey, they don't have a celebrity in their films. So
Mm-hmm.
so we are hopefully going to start a South Asian festival starting 2026. And
Oh, that's
so I just
amazing.
want to
So
make a simple
exciting.
announcement over here. Yeah.
Oh
So it'll
yeah,
be,
you
yeah.
hear it, you heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, yeah.
Something exciting is
Breaking
coming.
breaking news. Breaking
Yeah,
news.
breaking news. Yeah. Um, so just a time check. We are at 6:30. We do have a couple of more questions if
Sure.
you are fine with going a little bit longer than we
I'm
expected
fine.
to.
I'm fine. I'm
That's
fine.
awesome. So we have one more question from Anjana. Has the South Asian community here in the Bay Area been supportive of your work?
Well, okay, so I'll let me see how I can word this without offending anybody. So as far as the mainstream work goes, one of the things I want to tell you that 10 years ago, I attempted to make my first ever South Asian series called Arzu Eman, which had predominantly Indian cast, and we shot it in the Bay Area. It was a 15-episode series that got released on Amazon. Uh, so that was my first attempt. It had a lot of support we got, and a lot of Indians and Pakistanis, they loved it, especially the folks who like the ZTV dramas. They loved it because that was kind of in the same way, like ZTV drama. But then,
Mm-hmm.
when I steered clear and I started moving towards the mainstream, and move towards something that will resonate with both the South Asian, Indian, Pakistani, and Bengali community, as well as the LGBTQ community, there was some resistance there. For example,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so I have a new series coming out called Marriage Material. It'll be released in August. I'll announce the platform on my Instagram channel, the exact date when it's going to be coming out. That is a story it's a South Asian story about two sisters. And there's a lesbian angle in it. And so when I was casting, I had a lot of challenge because no South Asian actress here, Indian or Pakistani, would be willing to play that because no, nahi, hum nahi kar sakte and all that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the challenging part. Like if you want to tell a story that is a little controversial, and
Mm-hmm.
you try to blend in both the South Asian storytelling with the LGBTQ storytelling, then people have a little resistance to that.
Right.
The other thing I would say that one of the challenges I had whenever I do LGBTQI projects, for some reason, I don't know why that is, I haven't really have been able to pinpoint that. The Indian community is more open to my storytelling and my stories
Mm-hmm.
compared to the Pakistanis. Especially if there's an LGBTQ angle, there's a lot of resistance to that. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming because of religion or whatever reason, so I don't get that much support from the Pakistani community, but the Indian community has been very supportive. From I can even remember when I did this movie called Under One Sun back in 2008. and it had a lot of well-known Bay Area actors at that time, including this actor Keith Stevenson, who at one
Mm-hmm.
point had worked with Amitabh Bachchan back in the 70s. And
Mm-hmm.
so from that point onwards, anything that I do that has South Asian themes, the Indian
Mm-hmm.
community has been very supportive. And I'm really
Mm-hmm.
grateful for that. I honestly really mean that.
I love to hear. I think in one of the previous answers, also you mentioned like when you started the SFQR Film Festival, just the solidarity between the industry and the community of coming together for something, for as a minority group and as an immigrant group coming together to sort of tell their stories because they understand and they do relate to the fact that okay, the mainstream media or the mainstream movies are not doing that, so we have to do it for ourselves. So I think I really love to hear when you talk about the solidarity of the community coming together to tell their stories. um, I think the other thing is that the whole thing of representation of the South Asians has come a long way in the mainstream cinema as well, and even in TV shows. Do you think that's also true for independent films?
Yes and no. So why I think it's it's moved, we've moved the needle forward. Definitely the needle has moved forward, and we made a
Mm-hmm.
lot of progress. When I started back in 2005, um, in the LGBTQI community, there was me and there was another guy called
Mm-hmm.
Harjant Gill. He was an
Mm-hmm.
Indian Punjabi queer filmmaker. We were the
Mm-hmm.
only two, no lesbian filmmakers, and
Mm-hmm.
there were no other South Asian filmmakers in general, right? But
Mm-hmm.
now you move forward. Now we have a lot of South Asian Indian filmmakers in the Bay, just alone in the Bay Area. So many filmmakers, and
Mm-hmm.
I just wish there was more of a community, because what happened was because I feel like I'm in like an elder position. I've been doing it for
Mm-hmm.
a while, and I tell all the young filmmakers, you know, if Prachi wants to make a film, I should support her and not become envious and do the leg pulling thing. Because what
Right.
happens is a lot of our community cannot come together because there's a lot of leg pulling, because they feel like, oh, if I support him or her, I won't get the funding to make my film. And that
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be the case. We are still, I mean, yeah, we have a vibrant South Asian community in the Bay Area, but we still need each other's support. So
Mm-hmm.
I would suggest anybody watching, anytime you hear a South Asian filmmaker making a film, whether it's something very silly or something like that with heavy subject matter, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's domestic violence or terrorism or anything that that people are trying to make a story about, come out and support them.
Mm-hmm.
And you may have a disagreement with them about their filmmaking approach. Like I watch some films, and I would say technically maybe this could be better, but I never, put anybody down.
Right.
Because then if you're going to do that, then how will we encourage them? Because at one point, I wasn't good at storytelling. I was a shitty filmmaker when I started, but there were
Yeah.
people who came forward, who helped me, who mentored me, who said, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
maybe maybe next time you can maybe tighten this scene a little bit. Is this too many frames here? Maybe you should next time lighting should have been better in that scene." So
Mm-hmm.
they were all like these positive feedback. So that's
Mm-hmm.
what I would say, that that's something I feel is lacking, and I wish there would be more cohesiveness, more support system, that we would
Mm-hmm.
be happy for each other. Anytime I
Mm-hmm.
hear some other South Asian filmmaker doing something, I'm really excited about it, because if they thrive, I thrive, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not
Mm-hmm.
a zero. We shouldn't look at it as a zero sum game. That, oh, for
Mm-hmm.
Prash to make a film, if I have to make a film, she cannot make her film, and that shouldn't be the case. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And what other thing that I am hearing in many of your advice for the budding filmmakers is mentorship. I think the fact that, you find a person you can look up to and just be open to learning always.
Yeah.
And that is something that I have been hearing again and again in many of your answers. So I think that's a great advice for anybody who is joining us here to learn more about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Puneet in the chat is asking
Oh my God, Puneet.
if you plan to make something very desi in the near future.
Okay, first of all, I just want to reiterate for folks joining us, Puneet wrote this film and he is playing the lead in it. And that film is called Not Tonight. It's premiering at the it's having its Bay Area premiere at the Brave Maker Film Festival, July 11th at 8:45 p.m. Please buy your tickets. I'll be there. Puneet is going to be there. Please come out and support us. And there'll be other Desi Indian filmmakers whose films are screening at the festival. Please come out and support them as well.
Hmm.
So to answer Puneet's question, um, so Arzu Iman was the first one, and Puneet is playing. By the way, he's playing the villainous dad in it, in Arzu Iman. So we have that audience that keeps asking me, hey, when are you doing a follow up? So the closest follow up I'm doing is called Marriage Material, which I
Hmm.
talked about earlier. That's coming out in August. So that's what's very very much like you know a, a soap opera, but with a twist. Because I'm trying
Hmm.
to bring in the LGBTQI and the mainstream, the second generation Indian
Hmm.
involved in it as well. Because a lot of time what happens when you do something like Arzu Iman, the first generation can relate to it. The second generation Indians, they were like, oh, this is too cheesy and it's too much like melodramatic, right? So then
Hmm.
they don't like that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to do something which resonates with both the first and the second generation.
Hmm. I love that. I love that. So we are almost nearing 6:40. I think I would love to end this with just final one question. If quickly you can give some tips or advice for in like some ways in which the diaspora filmmakers, actors, editors, any of which who want to get a break into this industry.
Well, like I said earlier, that I mean, if you're passionate about some story that you want to tell, don't feel shy. Don't feel like you cannot do this because as an immigrant, I'm telling you, we can do anything. And because we have a Jugaadi mindset, we can figure
Mhm.
things out. So just reach out to filmmakers, go to film festivals, and pick the brain of the filmmaker. Maybe and also if you have the opportunity, go on somebody else's set, see how they're what the process is like, and make
Mhm.
take some notes on your iPad or your notepad or whatever, and then ask the filmmaker separately, hey, I observe you were doing this thing or that thing. So that really helps. If you approach another person who's already in this field, that really makes your journey easy when you get into filmmaking. And
Mhm.
for the first time filmmakers, again, I would say don't go into debt. You don't have to get the RE Alexa camera. You don't have to rent the red camera. Start small, and then hone your skills because it's not going to happen overnight. And that's the
Mhm.
best way to go about it.
Mhm. I love that. It's not going to happen overnight, but you have
Yeah,
to go
yeah,
about it. That's
yeah.
amazing. I love that.
Mm.
All right. So I think this is a good point to end on. We have many, many more questions for you, but we can't keep going on and on. So thank you everyone for joining in and asking great questions. Thank you, Amir, for taking time to be here with us today for this insightful and rich conversation. It was so lovely to speak with you, and we just look forward to all of your projects. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Um,
much for having me. Really appreciate it, Prachi.
yeah,
And
yeah, it was so
thank you, India
lovely.
Currents as well. One thing I want to quickly say that I'm so grateful to India Currents. They've been so supportive of both my projects and Puneet's projects the last 5 years. So I really appreciate your support.
That's thank you so much for saying that. I mean, India Currents just is has been the go-to place for everything Indian American, South Asian work that's going on around in the Bay Area. So, and we love spotlighting just stories, everything that is and around our diaspora. So, that's a job. Everyone in who has joined us, please let us know in the comments what topics you would like us to cover in the future sessions. Follow us if you haven't already. We do these regularly, and thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Take care.
All right.